The cage in the shadows. The market was loud. Creatures from many planets shouted, sold, and bargained. Lights blinked, banners waved, and guards walked around with heavy boots. But in one dark corner, hidden from the main road, stood a small iron cage. Inside that cage was an alien woman, Sorella, and her little child. Sorella sat quietly, holding her baby close to her chest. Her skin was pale violet, covered in dirt. Her eyes once sparkled like stars, but now they were tired and full of sadness. Her child, no older than 2 years, was thin and weak. His small hands clutched her torn shawl. He cried softly, his voice barely a whisper. No one came near. Some passed by and laughed. Others turned away. A sign on the cage read, "Widow, worthless, mother and sick child, 5 credits only." To most, it was junk, not even good for slave work. They said Sorella's race had lost the war, so now she was nothing, just trash. Her husband died fighting for freedom. She had been captured, beaten, and thrown into a cage like an animal. But one man stopped. His name was Jace Marlowe. A human, a simple trader with a small cargo ship and not much money. He walked slowly through the market, tired from travel. He wasn't looking to buy anything, just food. But something made him stop. It was a sound, a quiet, painful cry. The cry of a child. He turned his head and saw the cage in the shadows. His eyes met the alien mother's. She looked at him, not with hope, but with fear, as if she had learned not to trust anyone anymore. Jace stepped closer. The guard nearby raised his hand. "Hey, don't waste your time. That thing's cursed. Everyone who bought her returned her. Just walk away." But Jace didn't move. He knelt beside the cage, looking at the child. The baby's skin was too pale and his lips were dry. He looked sick. Dying, maybe. "What's his name?" Jace asked, softly. Sorella looked surprised. No one had asked that before, not in weeks. She spoke in broken English. "Name is Riven. He hungry." Jace took out a small protein bar from his bag and gently pushed it through the bars. Sorella took it, broke it in half, and gave the bigger piece to her child. Riven chewed slowly, tears in his eyes. Jace's heart hurt. "I can't take you out right now," he whispered, "but I'll come back." Sorella didn't answer. She had heard many promises before. No one ever returned. That night, Jace couldn't sleep. The child's cry kept echoing in his ears. It wasn't just a sound. It was a memory. Long ago, during a war on Earth, Jace's younger brother had cried just like that. Trapped, helpless, dying. Jace had been too late to save his brother. "I won't be too late this time," he said to himself. The next morning, Jace returned to the cage. The same guard stood there, now drunk and bored. "You again?" the guard said, laughing. "Want to adopt a ghost?" "I want to see them," Jace said, offering a few credits. The guard shrugged and let him pass. Sorella sat the same way, still, holding Riven, but her eyes changed slightly when she saw Jace, a little softer, a little less afraid. Jace gave her clean water and some fruit paste. "Why are you here?" he asked. "War lost," she said. "Husband dead, no place, no food, no one want, broken mother." Jace looked at her closely. She was thin, yes, dirty, yes, but her arms were still strong from holding her baby every day. Her eyes still burned with fire, even if they were sad. She wasn't weak, she had just been forgotten. "I want to help," he said. "No money?" she asked. "Very little," he answered honestly. "But I can try." The merchant who owned the cage came by. He saw Jace and laughed. "You want that? 5 credits. She's worth nothing." Jace hesitated. He only had 10 credits left, and he needed fuel for his ship. But then Riven reached his small hand out from the cage and touched Jace's boot. Something inside Jace broke. He gave the man 5 credits. The merchant slapped the cage door open. Take her. Trash is yours now. Jace stepped forward. Can you walk? He asked Sorella. She nodded. Slowly, she stood, up holding Riven close. As they walked away from the cage, the merchant shouted behind them, You'll regret it. That one's a curse. Jace didn't look back. Sorella said nothing, but her eyes watered. That night on his small ship, Jace gave them blankets, food, and warmth. Riven slept peacefully for the first time in weeks, and Sorella whispered the first real word since her capture. You heard him cry. Jace replied, Yes, and I'll never forget that sound. The old ship hummed quietly in the dark hangar. It was not fancy, just metal, wires, and rust. But to Sorella it felt like the first warm place in years. Her son, Riven, slept beside her, wrapped in a soft blanket that smelled of engine oil and kindness. Jace sat across the room, leaning against a wall. He watched the small family without saying anything. His stomach was empty. He had spent almost all his credits, but his heart felt full. That soft cry. It had pulled something out of him, something he didn't know was still alive. He stood up, walked to the control panel, and quietly activated the ship's heater. Then he sat down again, staring at the stars outside the window. Sorella opened, her eyes slowly. Her instincts were still sharp. She had learned not to trust peace. But now there was no cage, no cruel guard, no cold floor. Just this strange human who had bought her freedom for 5 credits. Why, help? She asked in her broken voice. Jace looked at her. Because no one helped me once, he said. When my little brother was dying, no one cared, not even my own people. I was too late. Sorella didn't understand all his words, but she heard the pain in his voice. Now I hear a child cry, he added. I can't walk away again. Sorella looked down at Riven and whispered, You save us. But Jace shook his head. Not yet. You're still hunted. They'll come looking for you. Sorella's body tensed. She knew what he meant. She had seen others caught, beaten, sold again. She held Riven closer, like her arms alone could protect him. That night Jace made them soup from ration packs. It was salty and bland but warm. Sorella ate slowly. Riven ate faster. His strength was still low, but his eyes looked brighter. After eating, Sorella spoke again. You risk danger for us? Jace nodded. Yes, she tilted her head. Not your war, not your people. I don't care about species, he said. I care about what's right. Sorella was quiet for a long time. Then she whispered, In my language, you would be called heartbound. What does that mean? One who hears pain and answers. Jace smiled faintly. Then maybe I'm heartbound. The next morning, trouble arrived. As the sun rose over the trading post, a group of bounty trackers entered the market. Their skin was thick and scaled, armor black as coal. They carried plasma weapons and cruel eyes. One of them held up a picture. This one, the widow, escaped property. She was sold to a human trader named Jace Marlowe. The merchant who sold. Sorella grinned and pointed. He took her 5 credits. I told him she was cursed. Within minutes, a bounty alert was sent across the sector. Jace Marlowe, wanted for property theft and aiding alien fugitives. Back on the ship, Jace worked fast. He gathered old parts, supplies, and fuel. Sorella watched him move like a storm. What happened? She asked. They're coming, he said. Hunters. For you. And now for me. She stepped forward. Leave us, we go, you be safe. Jace looked at her, angry, not at her, but at the world. No, he said. I'm not like them. You're not a thing I bought. You're people. And people don't get left behind. Sorella was stunned. Her people had always told her humans were selfish, cold, dangerous. But here was one, protecting her child like he was his own. Then what do we do? She whispered. Jace grinned. We run, we hide, and we fight if we have to. Before takeoff, Jace gave Sorella a comm device. It's old tech, he said. But press the red button and I'll find you. She looked at the device, holding it carefully. Why, trust me? I don't, Jace said honestly. But I want to. Then, for the first time, Sorella smiled. It was small, soft, but real. As the ship lifted off, the trackers entered the hangar just seconds too late. The engines roared, smoke covered the ground, and the old cargo ship disappeared into the sky. Inside, Riven laughed, a weak, joyful sound that made both adults stop and listen. You heard him cry, Sorella said, her voice now stronger. Yes, Jace answered. But now, I want to hear him laugh more. The stars blinked quietly outside the ship's window as it drifted through deep space. Inside it was calm. Too calm. But Jace Marlowe knew peace never lasted. He sat in the pilot's seat, staring at the alert flashing red on his screen. Bounty. Alert. Jace Marlowe wanted for alien theft reward, 20,000 credits. Dead or alive, he leaned back, exhaled slowly and muttered, well, that didn't take long. Behind him, Sorella was feeding her child. Riven looked stronger now. His skin had color again. He laughed when she made soft clicking sounds, his people's way of playing. Jace watched them with quiet worry. He had made a choice. He had saved them. But now the whole galaxy wanted him punished for it. The price of mercy, he thought bitterly, is blood. That afternoon, they stopped at a hidden supply station inside an asteroid field. It was an old, shady outpost where no one asked questions. Jace entered the market. His credits were nearly gone. He needed food, clean water, and fuel cells. But more than that, he needed new ship codes, something to hide them from scanners. He stepped up to a black market trader named Vex, a short, lizard-faced being with sharp yellow teeth. You're in trouble, human, Vex hissed, eyeing the bounty screen. 20,000 is a big price. You must have stolen something real special. I didn't steal, Jace said. I saved a mother and child. Vex laughed cruelly. You think the galaxy cares about your kindness? Jace threw his last few credits on the table. I need new identity codes now. Vex shook his head. Not enough. Maybe I take the credits and turn you in. Jace didn't blink. He pulled out a small plasma pistol from his belt and set it gently on the table. Try, he said calmly. The air went still. Vex narrowed his eyes. Then he chuckled and handed Jace a data chip. You've got fire, human. Fine. You get your codes, but if they catch you, I never knew you. Back on the ship, Sorella sensed something was wrong. You fight? She asked softly. No, Jace said, sliding into the pilot seat. But the galaxy's getting smaller. He handed her a wrapped food pack. She opened it slowly, her fingers shaking. You give everything, even your credits. Jace nodded. Some things are worth more. Sorella looked at him confused. What do you get from saving us? Jace hesitated. He wanted to say he didn't know, but deep inside he did. I get to sleep at night, he whispered. I get to know I did something right. Sorella looked down. No one ever gave me anything without price. You're not a slave now, Jace said. You don't owe me anything. She looked at him again, slower this time. Her voice was quieter. I want to give, not because I owe, because I choose. That night she sat beside him while Riven slept. For hours they said nothing, but something between them began to grow, soft, like a small flame in the cold. Suddenly, an alert screamed through the ship. Incoming vessel, unmarked, fast approach. Jace jumped up, scanning the radar. No ID code, he muttered. Could be pirates or bounty hunters. Sorella stood behind him. We fight? Jace looked at her. She was still wearing rags from the cage, but her eyes burned with courage. No, he said. We run. He hit the boosters. The ship lurched forward, engines roaring through the asteroid field. The enemy ship followed. They're faster, Jace shouted. Sorella rushed to the back and opened a panel. I fix old stabilizer. I help. Jace wanted to stop her. She had a child to protect, but then he remembered. Sorella was the wife of a war engineer. She wasn't helpless. She rewired systems fast, her hands moving with skill. Now try. Jace twisted the controls. The ship jolted but gained speed. Behind them, the enemy fired. A blast struck their tail. Warning shot. Sorella climbed into the front seat beside him. Let me help, you fly, I shoot. Jace smiled. Deal. They worked together. One pilot, one gunner. Blasts flew past them, but Sorella's aim was sharp. She hit the enemy's wing. Their pursuers spun out, crashing into a floating rock. Silence returned. Jace and Sorella sat breathing heavily side by side. Riven cried in the back, but it was only a scared cry, not a dying one. Jace stood up. He's safe. Sorella nodded. Because of you. No, Jace said. Because of us. Later, as Jace patched the ship, Sorella brought him a drink. You could have left us. I didn't, he said simply. You paid for me, she said. But you never claimed me. Jace turned slowly. Because you're not something to own. Sorella stepped closer. Her hand gently touched his. In my culture, when someone gives without asking, we call it a soul gift. Jace looked into her eyes. I don't know your ways, he said, but I know this. No matter the cost, I'd do it again. The stars were quiet, but Jace knew silence in space could be deadly. Past him, stared at the new bounty update on the screen. His face now appeared in red with a blinking warning. Do not approach without armed backup. That meant one thing. Galactic enforcers were on the hunt. Jace shut the screen off and leaned back in the pilot seat, rubbing his tired eyes. His muscles ached. His credits were gone. His ship was barely holding together. But worse than all, that he wasn't running alone anymore. He looked over his shoulder. In the back of the small ship, Sorella held her son, Riven, in her arms. They were both asleep. Sorella's long silver hair had been brushed for the first time. Her skin still showed scars, but her eyes didn't look like a prisoner anymore. They looked like a mother's. And Jace? He didn't know what he was anymore. A fugitive maybe, but also something else. The next day, Jace landed the ship on a hidden moon called Coral's Drift. The moon had deep caves and foggy skies, perfect for hiding. Only old farmers and ex-smugglers lived there. No one cared who you were as long as you didn't bring trouble. Jace parked his ship under thick rock cover and led Sorella and Riven into the town. They wore long cloaks, faces hidden. Sorella held Riven tightly as she walked beside Jace. Her eyes moved fast, watching every stranger, every shadow. Jace stopped at a small shop run by an old man with a mechanical eye. Name's Dunn, the man grunted. I fix engines, patch. Wounds, sell gossip. Jace gave him a firm nod. I need food, ship parts, and silence. Dunn looked at Sorella. You brought company. She's under my protection, Jace said. Dunn squinted. You'll have to pay double for that. Jace opened his pack. I have nothing left to trade, but I can work. The old man stared at him, then without a word, tossed him a dirty wrench. Start with the leaking valves in the back, don't die in there. Over the next few days, Jace worked from sunrise to moonset, cleaning engines, lifting parts, fixing machines he'd never seen before. Sorella stayed inside the small hut they were given. She cooked, cleaned and nursed Riven, who was finally gaining weight. But the nights were different. They sat close by a small fire. Sorella would tell stories of her world, her husband, her people. Jace would listen, then share tales of Earth, of oceans she'd never seen and snow she didn't believe existed. One night she asked quietly, "Why you never ask for anything from me?" Jace blinked. What do you mean? You saved me, gave food, gave freedom. Men always want something. I didn't save you to own you, Jace said. She looked down. But what if I want to give? He didn't know what to say, so he said nothing, and she didn't push. But something hung in the air between them now, something unspoken, yet warm. One morning, it all changed. While Jace was loading parts outside, a sharp whistle cut the wind. He turned. At the edge of the ridge, a sleek enforcer drone hovered, scanning. Target located. Jace Marlowe. Alive. Panic hit his chest. He dropped the tools and ran for the hut. Inside, Sorella was already packing fast, her eyes wide. "They found us," Jace gasped. She nodded. "Riven is ready." They ran to the ship, hearts pounding. The drone fired a warning blast behind them, striking the dirt. Villagers ducked. Dunn yelled from his shop, "Go, boy. Get out before they bring a fleet." Jace slammed the ship's doors. Shut. "Hang on." Sorella held Riven tightly in her arms, whispering calming words in her language. Jace lifted the ship off the ground just as more drones appeared on the radar. "This is bad," he muttered. "Really bad." They soared through the clouds, chased by black enforcer ships. Laser blasts lit up the sky. Jace pushed the engine to its limit. "We can't outrun them forever." "Go to Ion Belt," Sorella said suddenly. Jace blinked. "That... Stormfield, are you crazy?" "They won't follow," she said. "Their tech will die in the ion winds, but your ship, it's old, it can make it." He looked at her. "If you're wrong, I'm not." He trusted her. He turned the ship hard and flew into the glowing blue clouds of the ion belt. Inside, the ship groaned. Lights flickered. Sparks flew. The enforcer ships followed. Then one by one, they dropped from the sky, systems dead. The storm destroyed their controls. But Jace's ship, old and rough, kept flying. When they exited the other side, space was quiet again. Safe. Jace let out a breath. "You saved us." Sorella smiled. "Now we're even." "No," Jace said softly. "Now we're a team." She nodded, looking at Riven, who slept peacefully. "Then, let's keep running. Together." The stars around them looked calm, but Jace knew war often wore a beautiful face before it struck. He sat in the captain's seat, reading the cracked control screen. Every system blinked yellow: low fuel, overheated thrusters, damaged nav core. One more jump like the last one, and the ship might tear itself apart. Behind him, Sorella was singing softly to Riven. The child lay on a soft mat, wrapped in a warm cloth. He smiled in his sleep. His face, once thin and pale, now had color again. That sight gave Jace the strength to keep going, but their peace wouldn't last. He opened a message received on the emergency channel. "Unknown ship in restricted zone. Orders: eliminate on sight." Jace's ship was marked. The next patrol wouldn't ask questions. They'd fire. He sighed and whispered to himself, "You gave them your word. No turning back." That night, Sorella joined him at the ship's deck, watching the twin moons of the dead planet below. "You haven't slept?" she said. "Didn't want to," he replied. "Nightmares are worse than staying awake." She stepped closer. "You're scared." He nodded slowly. "I don't know if I can protect both of you when everything breaks." Sorella's hand gently touched his arm. "You already did. You gave us a chance." Jace looked into her glowing eyes. "You've changed too, Sorella. You're not just a widow anymore." She smiled softly. "I've started to feel alive again." He wanted to say more. Something real. Something close to his heart. But the ship's alarm suddenly screamed through the hallway. "Incoming fire. Brace immediately." The ship shook violently. A plasma bolt ripped past their left wing. Lights burst. Sparks flew. Riven cried in the back. Jace and Sorella ran to the control panel. Jace's hands flew over the buttons. "Ship's too slow. We can't outrun this one." "Then we fight," Sorella said, pulling open the weapons panel. Jace turned. "You ever fire a turret before?" She replied calmly. "My husband taught me during the war, I remember." He smiled. "Then let's give them something to remember too." The enemy ship appeared on the radar. It was sleek, black, and marked with the Empire's death wings. It circled like a hawk ready to kill. Sorella jumped into the gunner seat. Ready! Jace piloted the ship through clouds of space debris, swerving, dodging fire. Sorella waited, then, boom, she struck. Her blast hit the enemy's shield. It didn't fall, but it shook. Jace whooped. You're not bad at this. Sorella narrowed her eyes. I used to be better. The enemy fired again. This time the shot hit the side. A warning. Systems flashed red. Smoke filled part of the cabin. Riven screamed from his corner. Jace growled. Hold on, kid, not today. Sorella switched the gun to manual. Her hands moved fast, memories flooding back. Battles, escapes, losses. She closed her eyes for 1 second, then fired 3 shots in perfect rhythm. The first hit the enemy's engine. The second blew out its left wing. The third went straight through the cockpit. The enemy ship exploded in silence, fire and light dancing like stars. Jace stopped the ship and stared. You did that? He said. Sorella stood slowly, breathing hard. For my son. For you. The ship was silent again. Only the hum of broken systems remained. Jace walked to her. You saved us. She nodded. Now we are even more than even. He smiled. Now we're dangerous together. Later that night, Jace patched the holes in the ship while Sorella rocked Riven to sleep. The boy held a small wooden star Jace had carved for him. He refused to sleep without it. Sorella came to the cargo bay where Jace worked. She watched him silently for a moment. You look tired, she said. I've been worse. You look strong, she added. He chuckled. You always say things like that after we almost die. She stepped closer. Her voice was low. Because each time, I see you differently. Jace wiped grease from his hands. How do you see me now? Sorella hesitated. Then she reached up and touched his cheek. Not as a rescuer, not as a traitor, not even as a human. Then what? As someone who gives hope. Jace's heart beat faster. He placed his hand over hers. And you're someone who brought life back to this ship. She looked down. I used to belong to a man I loved. I thought I would never feel anything again. And now? He whispered. I feel scared again, because I'm starting to care. He leaned in, close enough to hear her breath. I care too, he said. They didn't kiss, not yet. But in that moment, something deeper passed between them, stronger than words. 2 broken souls bound by fire, running through stars, and neither wanted to run alone anymore. The stars drifted like ghosts across the black sky as Jace's ship floated silently above a quiet planet. No alarms, no hunters, no fire, just peace. For now. Inside the ship, Sorella sat near the sleeping form of her child. Riven had a soft blanket over him and a small wooden star beside his face. He clutched it in his little hand like it was treasure. Sorella watched him with quiet eyes. Once she had believed her life ended the day her husband died. Once she had thought she was just a widow, a broken thing, sold for scraps. Now, things were different. Jace worked outside the ship, fixing the heat shields. His hands were burned and tired, but his mind was calm. Not long ago, this ship had been only his, a lonely place with metal walls and quiet nights. But now, laughter had entered it, and music, and life. Sorella had started humming while she cooked. Riven had begun to giggle when Jace made silly faces. The ship, once just a machine, now felt like a home. He touched the hull and whispered, "Not bad for a trader who wasn't supposed to care." That evening, the wind was soft and the air on the planet was clean. Jace set up a small campfire near the ship. Sorella stepped outside holding a food pack and sat beside him. They ate quietly under the stars. Sorella broke the silence. "You are not like most humans," Jace smiled. "Some would say I'm not like most anything." She looked at him carefully. "Do you miss your home?" He nodded slowly. "Sometimes, But Earth never felt like home after the war. She tilted her head. Then why do you still help others? Because I know how it feels to be forgotten, Jace replied. I swore if I ever saw someone crying for help, I'd answer. Sorella looked down at her hands. You answered my child's cry. You both changed me, he said gently. Her voice was soft now. I was just a widow before. A broken widow. You're not just anything, he said. You're strong. You're fierce. You kept your child alive when no one else would. Sorella's eyes glistened. No one had said such words to her in years. Later, Riven woke from a small dream and called out softly. Sorella moved to go to him, but Jace raised his hand. Let me try. He entered the ship and sat beside the boy. Riven blinked up at him, then slowly smiled. Jace held his tiny hand. You're safe now. Sleep. Riven's eyelids drooped, and soon he was asleep again. When Jace returned to the fire, Sorella stood there watching him. Her voice trembled slightly. He never sleeps for anyone else. Jace shrugged. Maybe I'm growing on him. She stepped closer. You didn't just save us, Jace. You gave us back something we thought we lost forever. What's that, a future? The night grew colder. Sorella wrapped her shawl tighter and Jace handed her his jacket. She shook her head. You'll be cold. I've been through worse. Still, she hesitated. Then, slowly, she leaned against his shoulder. They sat like that in silence for a long while. I was once married, she whispered. He died protecting our village. I thought I'd never feel safe again. Jace didn't speak, he only listened. But now, she said, voice shaking, when I sit beside you, I don't feel like a widow anymore. Jace turned to her. You're not. She looked into his eyes. Then what am I now? He hesitated, then spoke honestly. You're my partner, my crew, and maybe something more if you want that. Tears welled in her eyes, not sadness, not grief, something else. Hope. She touched his cheek gently. I do. Jace leaned in slowly. This time there was no pain holding them back. Their lips met, soft, uncertain but real. A kiss not born of rescue but respect. Not of pity but promise. When they pulled apart, Sorella smiled. Truly smiled. And for the first time Jace saw her not as the woman he found in a cage, but the woman who had survived it, and learned how to love again. Inside the ship, Riven stirred. He looked out the small window, saw the two figures near the fire, and smiled. The stars above them blinked silently. But this time, there was no darkness behind them. Only light. Only love. The stars had changed. Once cold and silent, they now felt warm, like watchers of a new story. A story that began with a cry in a dark cage, and now neared its end on a planet where peace finally lived. Jace stood on the hilltop, wind brushing through his hair. Below him, a small house was being built, wood and metal shaped by human hands and alien design. It wasn't much, but it was theirs. A home. Riven ran through the fields nearby, chasing a wind creature that shimmered like glass in the sun. He laughed so loudly the birds flew off. Jace smiled. Just months ago, that boy could barely breathe. Inside, the half-built home, Sorella stood in the doorway watching Jace. She had changed too. Her skin had healed, her scars faded. But more than her body, it was her eyes. Once filled with fear, now they burned with quiet strength. She wasn't a widow anymore. She was building again, living again, loving again. Jace turned as she approached, carrying 2 cups of hot root drink. You're up early, she said, handing him one. Hard to sleep, he said with a smile. Too quiet without bounty hunters chasing us. Sorella chuckled softly. I almost missed the explosions. He raised an eyebrow. Almost? She shrugged. Well, not the fire, but we became something in that fire, didn't we? Jace nodded. We became us. Later that day, a small ship landed near their home. Jace tensed at first. Old habits. But it wasn't a threat. It was Dunn, the grumpy, old mechanic from Corell's Drift. He stepped out with a heavy bag and a crooked smile. Heard you two fools survived. Thought I'd come see the miracle with my own eye. Riven ran to hug him. Uncle Dunn, the old man laughed. I brought parts, food, and letters. He tossed Jace a sealed packet. Inside were messages, from other systems, from other aliens. Some had heard about what he'd done. The human, who saved a widow and her child. Others were looking for help. One message read, My sister is still in a cage. They say you help those no one sees. Please, come. Jace looked at Sorella. Her eyes met his. They need what we were given. He nodded. Then we build this home not just for us, but for those who come next. That night, as the sun fell and stars rose again, Jace sat beside the fire holding Riven in his lap. The boy leaned against him, yawning. Tell me the story, Riven whispered. Again? Jace asked with a grin. Riven nodded. So Jace began. There, once was a man, a tired man, who walked through a market full of noise and lies, but then he heard a cry. A baby cry. Riven whispered, smiling. Yes, Jace said. A cry no one else heard. And that cry changed everything. Sorella joined them, sitting close. Jace continued. The man found a mother who had nothing but hope, and a child who had nothing but life left, and instead of walking away, he stayed. Because he had a big heart, Riven added proudly. Jace kissed his forehead, the biggest. And then? Riven yawned. And then they built something better than a ship or a story, Sorella said gently. They built a family. As Riven drifted into sleep, Jace looked up at the stars. He didn't feel small anymore. He didn't feel lost. He felt found. A man who once wandered from port to port, trading scraps and silence, now had something no money could buy. A home, a purpose, a family. And though the galaxy still burned in places, here in this small patch of stars, hope was growing. One child's cry had been heard, and that cry had become a song. They left her to rot in a cage. But one man heard the cry of a child and gave the galaxy a new beginning.